and welcome to Tech and Sports Podcast. Tech and Sports is a show about how technology is revolutionizing all the major sports as well as health and fitness. You can find this episode from your podcast service of choice. I'm Paul Dunbletto, the editor of Tech and Sports. With me here is Mandy Kovacs, a.k.a. the Carlton Kid.
Hello.
And look who showed up for work. Alex Radu is back.
Finally.
After an assignment in Washington, D.C., and he has a story from Magic Johnson, the Laker great and NBA Hall of Famer.
You guys act as if I was gone for so long when y'all are gone all the time.
Whatever. Haters gonna hate.
Collectively, we are your third stringers. On the podcast today, we're going to talk about the aforementioned Magic Johnson. The Invictus Games are about to commence in Toronto. And last week, we talked about IoT sensors in boxing glove. And Mandy, you have a story about sensors in baseball bats.
I do. In
the debate portion, we're going to talk about analytics versus the eye test. So all you optometrists out there, get ready. We also have incredibly hard trivia. So sit back and don't panic because the third stringers are coming into the game. So Alex, you were in Washington, D.C. You got to meet one of your heroes, your sporting legend, Erwin Magic Johnson. What did he have to say?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't say I met him. I stood inches away from him.
And cried, right?
And cried the whole time, of course. So Magic was presenting at the SaaS Analytics Experience Conference in DC. And it was more of like a leadership type thing. You know, he was just talking about his career and then his business dealings and stuff like that. But he mentioned 3 technology topics, 2 of which I'll talk right now really quick, and then 1, which is our debate, which is the whole analytics versus the eyeball test. So I'm going to talk about Lonzo Ball. And as you guys know, I love the Lakers.
It's your favorite topic.
I love Lonzo Ball. So this is the perfect excuse.
And Ball's the second overall pick in the last
second
draft.
Overall pick, yes.
Yeah.
Can't wait for him to... He did great in the Summer League, but that's not the point. Anyways. So Magic justified the Lakers' pick of Lonzo Ball due to what the analytics told them. So I decided to take a look at some of these stats and this will come back later when we're talking about analytics, but it's cool to see how some of these tinier analytics in basketball that the average fan isn't really looking at can really go and prove some of these points. So I picked up 3 stats from Lonzo in his first year at UCLA. So I'm going to go right into them. So, UCLA teammates beat Sports Illustrated's projections by an average of 6.8 points per 100 possessions. So, a lot of the talk with Lonzo is he's making his teammates better. He's selfless, and he provides open looks. And when the leader of the locker room is a selfless player like that, it can make his whole team better. So, to put that in perspective, Markelle Fultz, Dennis Smith Jr., and De'Aaron Fox, the 3 other really big point guards, who are very pass-friendly point guards anyways, their teammates did not post positive numbers in that department. Granted, those players are all a little more ball dominant than Lonzo Ball. But so that's just one stat. Next one. Of all of the one-and-done lottery pick point guards in the last 10 drafts, Lonzo's offensive rating ranks as the second best despite having the lowest usage rating of the top 10. So the number 1 player here is Kyrie Irving, who only played 11 games, though, due to injury. And we know how Kyrie turned out as one of the best players in the league. So here's the top 10. Kyrie Irving, then Lonzo Ball, then Markelle Fultz, who was the first overall draft pick this year, then D'Angelo Russell, Derrick Rose, De'Aaron Fox, Dennis Smith Jr., Mike Conley, Tyreke Evans, and John Wall. So Tyreke Evans really is the only person on that list other than the 3 rookies, or 4 rookies, actually, who have not played in the NBA yet, who has really not lived up to any type of hype. Mike Conley, as some people might know, the point guard for the Memphis Grizzlies, held the the biggest contract in the NBA for about a few hours last summer.
And yet, if I had to start a team, I think I would pick John Wall.
Oh yeah, 100%. List. I'm not saying he's not overpicked.
And he's 10th.
Yeah, I mean, but still, that's a heavy top 10. So you put John Wall at number 10, Lonzo's number 2. So what does that say about Lonzo Ball's projections?
Well, we'll see what happens.
We'll see. So then the last stat is Lonzo Ball had the best jump shooting efficiency of all the one-and-done point guards of the last 10 years at 1.28 points per possession when it comes to a jump shot. And this is cool to look at because everyone always critiques his terrible form. So it's like one of those things where Lonzo Ball learned how to shoot a ball terribly with awful form that no one should do, but he like mastered it.
But it works somehow. Yeah. Interesting.
But it's
Bobby
interesting.
Knight would be spinning right now.
Yeah, so I mean, it's like, I mean, there's even like clips of like LeBron making fun of it in practice. So it's like one of those things. And what's interesting about it is that 1.28 points per possession is the lead of all these draft picks, these one and done draft picks, and it's not even close to number 2. Number 2 was Kyrie, but Kyrie only played 11 games, so that's tough to kind of small sample size. But then superstars like Derrick Rose and John Wall didn't even hit the 1.0 mark. And granted, Derrick Rose now, you might not look at him like that, but before his ACL injuries, everyone was looking at Hall of Fame Derrick Rose.
Right.
So those are just some of those stats where I think you're not going to look at these stats on a stat sheet necessarily, but it proves other.
So answer me this, Alex.
Yeah.
Why didn't UCLA win the NCAA tournament? I believe they were out after the second game.
Because it's like any other tournament. It's one game. You have to win every single game, and you can have other teams beat it. They lost to De'Aaron Fox, actually. And De'Aaron Fox just played better than Lonzo that game. He shut him down. It was one game better than Lonzo. Lonzo didn't show up. And, I mean, Paul, you and I always talk about how it just takes one. Like, if you look back at Miracle on Ice, 1980.
One game.
9 out of 10 games, the Soviet Union beats the USA.
Yeah, that's right.
One game, they didn't.
Okay.
So that's my argument blocker there.
All right. Very well.
Yeah, and then real quick, just an actual tech thing that Magic mentioned. He invested in this company called Shot Tracker. It's super simple analytics for basketball. It's attaching a sensor to a sneaker. It tracks shot percentage and where shots take place on the court. So basically, like a trainer or coach can have a tablet that has like a basketball court on it, and a dot represents every single player, and it like tracks where they are real time, and like if they shot the ball, if it went in, and then their percentage from every area of the court. So it could tell like if this person shot like 8 out of 9 shots in the corner of the 3, and then 2 out of 9 in the from the key. So it's you can really it's real time showing those analytics, and obviously it's not allowed in games or anything yet, but college teams are using it, and some NBA teams are using it in practice.
So it's like a teaching tool for the player himself. So if he knows he can make the corner 3, he'll be doing it a lot more.
And it can tell,
as opposed to doing it from some other place.
And it can tell players where in a pinch they're more likely to go, where they're shooting from best, and what they can improve on.
I mean, honestly, that just immediately made me think of the Marauders map. Harry Potter, so moving away from sports for a second here.
It kind of is.
Right? That's
and
amazing.
I'll always talk about Harry Potter.
Love Harry Potter.
All right.
Okay,
Anyways.
So the Invictus Games is starting this weekend in Toronto. And the Invictus Games is a parasport event for wounded, injured, or sick armed services personnel and their associate veterans. It was started by Prince Harry, who I believe is 5th in line to become the King of England, which means he won't become the King of England. Anyways. So I got a chance to interview the Canadian Invictus Games captain, Bruno Gavremont, and we talked about pressure in sports a lot on this podcast, but Gavremont really knows how to deal with extreme pressure, because he told me when he was in Afghanistan, he once took a vest loaded with explosives off a suicide bomber during one of his tours as in the Canadian Armed Forces Technical Bomb Squad.
Wow. Well, that's more bravery than anything in sports.
Yeah.
For sure.
Anything we'll ever do in our lives.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So Gavremont has spent 15 years in the military. He joined the Canadian Armed Forces as a weapons technician assigned to paratroopers. From there, he transferred to become a Navy diver, and then the bomb squad, where his team defused more than 100 improvised explosive devices, including that suicide bomber, by the way. But the military career took a toll on Gavremont, and he suffers from post-stress disorder. At home in Victoria, BC, he runs a CrossFit gym, and he's competing in indoor rowing starting this Saturday. And Gavremont told me that sports and the Invictus Games became part of his rehabilitation process after he was injured in Afghanistan. So the inaugural Invictus Games took place in London in 2014 and featured more than 450 competitors. The Invictus Games in Toronto will be sponsored by Sage Software, which is one of the leading accounting software vendors. And the Toronto event will have more than 600 competitors from 16 countries competing in 12 sports. But really, this is a really heartwarming story for Gay Vermont. And there's also going to be a very big technology play in the Invictus Games. I mentioned Sage Software, but on the third day of the event, the Ministry of Research, Innovation, and Science is also partnering with the Invictus Games and holding its Accessibilities Innovation Showcase in Toronto. There's going to be 48 leading innovators in the assistant technology, demoing futuristic technologies and devices to enhance the lives of people with disabilities. Now, I didn't know this, but assistive technology, very easy for me to say, is a huge growth market with nearly 1.9 million people in the province of Ontario, where Toronto is the capital of, currently living with some type of degree of disability. That's 1 in 7 people like Gay Vermont. And so at the showcase, where they're going to show AI, machine learning, tech implants, app development, cloud computing, virtual reality, and 3D printing. And a couple of the cool tech solutions that I looked at involve reading and translating brainwaves. So can you imagine if you're a hitter in baseball, being able to read the brain of the pitcher just before he throws the ball?
That's amazing.
You see, okay.
What?
With this, like,
Yeah.
So you're reading, you'd be able to monitor your brainwaves before.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, that's the concept.
That I question how this is useful.
Well, isn't it kind of like a heart rate monitor?
Okay, but it's also like what? Okay, but a heart rate monitor, I guess more brain activity. But like when
you're stressed, yeah.
When you're like in a sport though and something's happening, it's not like I'm using. And I mean, I'm just not good at sports. But like, are you like really using your like your conscious brain to like know that you need to get this pass or that you need to swing the bat?
Well, hey, this technology will tell you.
Okay, I mean,
Absolutely,
I guess that's true.
absolutely. I think a large part of any sport is mental. One more cool thing is I don't know if you guys remember the TV show, The $6 Million Man. He was put together with bionics. Yeah. They're going to have bionics on display in terms of a small retinal implant encased in a diamond that could help return the sight to someone who's blind. They expect this to come out in 2022. Now, do you remember Minnesota Twins superstar Kirby Puckett had to retire because of poor vision? And so that could have obviously helped there.
Same with Manny Malhotra.
So,
that's right, Manny Malhotra.
Okay, but are you now telling me that I can put diamonds in my eyes?
That's what you took out of that?
Well, it's going to be an expensive solution. We shouldn't jest. Okay. But anyways, to learn more about this, you can go on to ontario.ca website and look for the Accessibilities Innovation Showcase page. And so, Mandy, last week we talked about IoT sensors in boxing gloves. And you have a story about sensors in baseball bats.
Right. So the NCAA has approved the use of swing tracking bat sensors for use during games for their upcoming 2018 season for softball. So this means that the NCAA is the first major baseball and softball organization to approve these kinds of devices, like for actually in competition. And so all of the devices that they will be using will be made by Diamond Kinetics. And so adding the sensors to the game, the players are saying that they can get a new reference point and perspective and really help in improving their game and their swings. Like a lot of players have said, they like to be able to compare their swings in games versus their swings in batting practice, for example. And a lot of coaches said that they want to use it to better monitor workloads for each players, motivate them to work on their swings a little bit more, and maybe even explore the changes in swing based on specific pitch types, pitch locations, or differences in facing left-handed versus right-handed pitchers. But some of the regulations around this are kind of interesting, though. For example, the bat knobs are allowed to be hollowed out so that they can hold a sensor, but the device can't affect performance, I guess in terms of like weight and stuff for swinging.
Because of cork bats.
Right. Yeah, and they need to have a primary and backup locking mechanism so that they don't fall out of the bat in the middle of a game. And then it needs to have an offline mode to prevent in-game access, because that's what I think is the most interesting part about this, is that it's not going to be real-time data. Players and coaches will only be able to access this swing data after the game. So like it's not like you can kind of if you strike out, for example, go back to the dugout, see what you did wrong, and try to improve it your next at bat. You're not allowed to do that. You're going to have to wait until after the game, use it during practice, and hopefully improve in your next game.
So they're using it for training as opposed to the competitive advantage, in-game competitive advantage.
Exactly.
Right.
So, though, my question to that is, why can't they use it in a game? Like, I don't understand why you would stop them from using it. Like, baseball is entirely, like, it's the most micromanaged of sports
Absolutely.
that there is. So why not add this other layer of micromanaging to it? I just don't understand why this would be canceled or not allowed in a game.
I mean, honestly, I don't really understand it either because I agree with you, right? Like, baseball has so many different acronyms for all the stupid little stats that they track. Like, they track every single movement. I don't know why you wouldn't be able to use it in real time, but I guess maybe that gives you an unfair competitive advantage to be able to go back, practice within, sitting on the bench, and the next time you go up to bat, you're better.
I don't think this is coming to MLB because look at what happened with the Red Sox and the Apple Watch.
Yeah. Right.
Let that be noted.
Yeah.
So, Mandy, it's in the NCAA. What about MLB, the prospects for the major leagues?
Yeah, so I mean, the MLB is doing something similar because they partnered with Blast Motion, which is a sensor-based motion capture technology developer, last year as their official bat sensor technology in a multi-year deal. But again, so this tech is available for what they call organizational developmental use, which is basically a fancy way of saying just practice. And it actually will be available for purchase on their website as well for like youth athletes or amateur athletes that also want to test out this stuff. But again, within the MLB, this technology is not allowed in games, just in practice.
Okay, so before we get into our debate portion, let's go to the incredibly hard trivia. And so the trivia question centers around the amazing career of Irving Magic Johnson. There are so many great trivia questions about his career, but I thought every Laker fan and maybe even every basketball fan should really know this.
Watch me not know it.
So
I can almost guarantee you I won't know this.
So the question is, how did Magic get his nickname?
Oh, okay. It was a sports reporter in Michigan when he was playing high school and said that the nicknames Big E and Dr. J were already used. And so he wanted to nickname him Magic. And Magic thought it was a joke, but he was like, okay, whatever. He's like, he never thought it would stick. And then here we are.
You know the name of the reporter?
I don't know the name of the reporter. Was it Scott something?
No.
Okay.
But essentially you're right. Jack Stabley, who was reporting on one of his high school games where Johnson scored 46 points, 22 rebounds, and 16 assists, thought it was Magic, and the name stuck. And you've redeemed yourself. You are a Laker fan. You know Magic's nickname. All right.
I don't just know it because I heard him repeat that story days ago.
Well, you know what? At least you're holding up this team.
All right, what's in it for the debate now?
All right, so our debate is really simple. It's the age-old test, if you want to call it, or debate. Analytics versus the eyeball test, or gut, if you want to call it that.
Yeah.
It's a debate that's been raging over the past decade in sports as technology becomes more important.
Age-old, yeah.
Age-old,
Yeah.
as we've said. And when Magic spoke last week, he talked about how he believes in a 50-50 split when it comes to the Lakers, and that's his mentality. 50% analytics, 50% eyeball test. And I think for when he mentioned it in kind of this like draft pick mentality, where I think you can go 50-50, because I think when he means by the analytics part, it's all those Lonzo stats that I went through for way too long earlier. But then you have the eyeball test, which we always talk about like that like that special quotient you can't track. Like if a player has it, they just have it. So I think it's that. Plus I also think it's like when you're a rookie or like you're 19, Magic had the ability, like he said he went and talked to Lonzo's neighbors, his high school principal, stuff like that. So it's like you're able to learn more about this person and see the potential that they have as like just a general human being. So I think that's what he means by the 50-50. But then I think the moment they become an NBA player, and it's like you're not giving an eyeball test to like a mid-tier guy in the NBA now and be like, oh, he's 30, he's still got it. Like you look at his analytics. Like to take the Laker thing further, Larry Nance Jr., who's in his early 20s, third or fourth year, I think now, he, like, eyeball test doesn't say much, but you then see on defense, lots of steals, lots of blocks, great defender. That's why they still have him on the team. That's why Magic called him out just in the same sentence as Lonzo when he was speaking. Or Brook Lopez, the new big guy for the Lakers that they got this summer. Brook Lopez been on the Nets. Nets are awful. But Brook Lopez last year had the best three-point percentage of all big men in the league, which I actually didn't know that.
I did not know that.
So
and I never would have guessed it.
And you never would have guessed it. So that's why I think analytics, sure, the eyeball test is good for kids and like for getting into the league and stuff because you have to guess to that extent. But I don't know. I think after that, it's all analytics.
So a couple months ago, I had a chance to hear Brendan Shanahan, the president of the Toronto Maple Leafs, talk about analytics at the Dell EMC conference. And he has a different approach to what Magic is suggesting. He doesn't think it should have any percentage, so it shouldn't be 50% analytics or big data and 50% eye test. He just thinks as analytics is just another tool that you can use, and it's part of the mix, and that's all it is. And it's not anything where it's this or that. And I have to totally agree with him because he's actually been in the forefront in terms of analytics because he hired Kyle Dubas, who's a big data stats guy early on. And you see in terms of the development of the players that they really have gotten players who have been effective. People like Connor Brown in the 4th round and Nikita Zaitsev, who had great years.
It's all part of the Shanna plan.
The Shanna plan,
I believe
exactly.
in the Shanna plan.
We all believe in the Shanna plan. And God, I hope they win.
Seriously.
God, that's a great name. I also believe in the Shanna plan because I believe in good things that are good names.
Thanks for that, Alex.
We all need a brand, right?
That's the analytics behind that.
Yeah.
Hot take.
So what do you think? Eye test or big data?
I tend to agree with Magic Johnson on this, the 50-50 approach, because I mean, analytics just divides people, you know? Like, I know people
I just don't think they should put a percentage to it.
Not necessarily a percentage, but I think you need both in the game. Absolutely.
I think that's also what Magic was saying, too.
Right, and I completely agree with that, because like, I know a lot of people that absolutely hate analytics, think they're useless, think that they're garbage, they're very old school, and then people that think analytics are the be-all, end-all, and like, that's all you should be talking about. Mm-hmm. And I mean, so this kind of reminds me of when I saw Canadian journalist and author Malcolm Gladwell at a Citrix conference in May, and he was talking about win shares in basketball. Mm-hmm. And so he presented 4 players and went through 7 years of them in the league, and was able to determine that 3 of the 4 players peaked in their 4th year in the league, except for one, Gordon Hayward, who was just traded to the Celtics, I believe, this summer.
Actually, free agent, but...
Sorry, whatever, he signed there then. And so he actually saw his play and his win shares climb steadily and then peaked in the most recent season. So, I mean, by looking at those analytics, you can kind of see how a team would use that to really find a player that like climbs steadily, gets better steadily, instead of a player that would like all of a sudden sign a new contract and then just not play well, you know? So like these analytics can definitely help, but they don't tell this whole story. And I mean, we were talking about boxing and sensors and boxing gloves last week.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to bring up my point from there again, is if you were watching the McGregor-Mayweather fight at the end of August, just a couple weeks ago, you see that McGregor actually had more punches landed against Mayweather in 10 rounds than Manny Pacquiao did in his 12-round fight against Mayweather in 2015. So, I mean, the Pacquiao fight was a much closer decision than the Mayweather-McGregor fight, but if you were basing this just off of numbers, you wouldn't know that. So, I mean, sensors...
And if you use the eye test, no one would ever pick McGregor over Pacquiao in terms of being the better boxer.
Exactly. So, I mean, sensors and analytics don't really account for those, like, nitty-gritty details of, you know, the difference between a light jab and a knockout punch, right, or a player that has a lot of work ethic.
And does someone have a good chin to take a punch?
Right? I mean,
There's
Mayweather
no analytics for that.
Yeah, Mayweather can take a punch, that's for sure. So,
yeah.
I mean, I kind of think you need that balance because there's pros and cons to analytics. They both, like, help and...
And there's also the point of, like, this whole whether players got it. Like, when you have someone like Magic or Larry Bird, Jerry West, Shaq, Kobe, all these guys, if they say some kids got it, listen to them.
Yeah. Right.
Like,
Because those players all had it.
Yeah, they all had it, and they all know what it looks like.
Yeah.
And like they've been around it for decades. So it's like that's where that also comes to too. And like Shanahan's the same way when you talk about hockey.
Right.
It's like Shanahan can look at a player and be like, okay, this analytics, he might have had a bad year, whatever. But I think I have a gut feeling, and then you got to kind of trust some of these guys with gut feelings every now and then.
Look at the Leafs' latest draft pick, Liljegren, the kid from Sweden. I mean, he got mono this past season and was out for like half of it and had really bad statistics. But they've been tracking him for a couple years, and he was supposed to go in like the top 2 or 3, I think, and dropped as far back as the Leafs were picking 17th or something.
And even Austin Matthews.
Yeah, that too.
His stats in junior hockey and with the Swiss team weren't off the page.
But he was playing against men instead of kids.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
Some guy, like someone like Mitch Marner, who is a great player, but Mitch Marner put up over 100 points against kids.
Yeah.
Austin Matthews was doing really well against men.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, the coaches talk about compete level all the time, and I mean, it kind of sounds like a buzzword, but hey, I mean, that's work ethic and drive, right? That makes a difference.
I mean, in the upcoming NBA draft, you have this year, you have this kid playing in Europe. He's playing against men, and he's playing really well, and it's got a lot of people excited because it's not college ball. It's a different type of game.
But it didn't work for Andrea Bargnani.
Well, no.
We're going to forget
it
that.
It decisively did not work for
Or Miko Milicic.
Yeah,
Detroit,
but, it's still...
Darko
Milicic.
Milicic.
It's still something, you know?
Yeah.
So
No.
you gotta keep your eye on both, I think.
It's true.
Okay, so that's it for Tech and Sports. Please subscribe and like us on iTunes and Google Play. My Twitter handle is Paulo@CDN or @PauloCDN. Alex, what's yours?
Alex T. Radu.
And I am Mandy V. Kovacs.
Also, I encourage you to go to itbusiness.ca/sports for more great tech and sports content. And before we sign off, I just want to mention the passing of the great middleweight champion, Jake the Raging Bull LaMotta. His story is part of one of my favorite movies, Raging Bull, and he died at 95. So that's it for us. The Third Stringers are signing off.